afternoon. Welcome to this week's AI Would Agree. I've had a bit of a change of technology partners this week. Unfortunately, StreamYard have annoyed me for the last time. I did warn them, and it happened. So we've now moved over to a new streaming platform. I'll be getting an upgraded version in the coming couple of weeks, but I've got a good version for now. And so I don't really have my normal feature of being able to bring Ralph in from the green screen and doing all the fancy fandangery that I normally do. So without further ado, please meet this week's guest, Ralph Naicker. Hi, Ralph.
Hey, Paul. It's a real pleasure to be here. I mean, wow. The last time we tried this, I ended up just traveling and, I missed the last date, but I'm really happy to be on board and looking forward to catching up with you.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, yeah, when you've got a rock and roll lifestyle like you, Ralph, and these podcast things, you've got to do the traveling first. It's all these yachts and boats and things that you keep flouncing around on. It's all good. It's all good, mate. It's all good.
Oh, well, I think I deserve it for the last 16 years of my journey.
Well, it's a great starting point, and that's actually going to be my first question. So I guess we'll lead with that. I know you've got an amazing story. I would be honoured if you'd share it with some of the audience for this week, because I think it's really inspirational for anybody who's about to hear it.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, so, well, it goes back 16 years ago. I finished high school, and being from Durban, South Africa, you sit at that point and you think, okay, I'm meant to study right now. But I looked at the bank balance and it said, no, get a job. And that's literally how it started. I mean, one of my brother's friends, he was working in a call center, and I didn't even know what it was. And I remember him saying, do you have a CV? No, I don't. All right, so can you just make one up and just come through? It's a new business. It's a new industry in Durban. But look, everyone that's working here is really enjoying it. And I had that at that point, Paul, I had the decision of either working in a factory or in retail, or I could have a nice little seat, have a headset, and talk to people. I love talking. So obviously I chose that route. And I remember my journey starting off in the very same building all those years ago with Mark and the guys. And, we started off by doing sales, business to business sales. From there, it went into inbound and upsell, all the exciting sort of parts of outbound and obviously sales, and then diversifying into sort of customer services. Now, I had a great opportunity at the time because I met someone that said, hey, do you know how to work these blocks on the screen? And I was like, you mean Excel? And I said, absolutely. And the guy said to me, okay, well, I need you to start working on these blocks. And his name was Robin. He's one of my mentors. And he was sales director at the time. And I started working with him, and he's the sales operational guy, out there character, larger than life, really motivational. And I was in the background doing all of the reports. So I ended up taking a role in reports and analytics. I became a business intelligence analyst. And I did that for around 7 years of my career. And it was absolutely amazing. I love being the guy behind the scenes that kept the engine going as such. It reached a point in my career, Paul, that I looked to the right and I looked at all the guys in operations and I said to myself, they look like they're having fun. They're driving some really good cars. They seem to be dressed a lot smarter. And I said to myself, I need to get in action. And I looked at my 4 screens and I said to myself, 3 of you got to go. And I had touched and went into the operational world. Now, that was a challenge, Paul, because being an analyst for so many years, it was amazing. I really enjoyed it and I did really well. It taught me a lot about business, but being operational, I had zero experience. And anyone that's probably on the live that knows me knows that I was quite reserved and, I was sort of a bookworm. So when I took the chance to get into operations, the very first thing I did was get my team around and take them through the reports. And in month 1, we failed. We absolutely failed. The chemistry wasn't there. The synergy wasn't there. And then I thought, what am I doing wrong? I've been years and years as an analyst supporting businesses, helping businesses to maximize profitability and really grow. Why is it that I can't do operations? And then I realized I lacked something that was majorly important: people science. So I taken a leaf of Rob's book and I decided to sit with all of my team, and I sat and got to know them, and I got to know every little detail about them. And up to now, our business is 1,400 seats strong. I know every person by name. I know their partners. I know where they're from. I know that when Asif walks past me and if his shoulders are down, it's not because he's sad. It's because he games till 1 in the morning. You know. So I know exactly. I know how people work. I understand the little bits and pieces of them, and that made me get buy-in from people. And being someone that was at the bottom of a center, working at the grassroots level, growing my career and going into operations, we got along, and I was more understanding to them. So using my years and years of experience in analytics, I was able to take teams to the next level. They always say there's 100%, you only have 100% to give. But where does that little extra comes from? It's about understanding your numbers and understanding that, to get better CSAT scores, to get better sales conversion rates, you've got to put more effort in. You've got to really understand the numbers of it. So winning with the people and getting them to understand the reporting made my sales team and my operational teams really, really strong. And at that point, it started to gather a lot of attention from some of the other departments, other companies, to understand what is it that they are doing different. And it was about finding that balance between not being too numeric and not being too people driven, but understanding that everyone has goals that they obviously want to achieve, short term, long term, but actually breaking it down for them to saying that, do you know what? Taking 5 more calls today means you're 5 steps closer to your goal. Doing it in that sort of sense. And my teams are built really strong teams. A lot of them have, grown through the ranks. Some of them are even operations directors of call centers in South Africa, and I'm super proud of them. And it was just a simple formula of being human and understanding that they are people. Understanding that reporting and all of the insights that we have, people might gently not understand how to use them. They wouldn't understand what the figures mean. And teaching them and training them in a way that makes sense. And from there, I think my career propelled, and I went back to one of my first centers that I worked in, and it was more corporate now and a lot larger. And I really enjoyed being there because it was a lot more structured. But there was a feeling inside of me that felt incomplete because in an established firm, everything's going on well. It's like clockwork. And because of it being a bit more corporate, you don't have the flexibility and freedom to innovate or to embed some of these principles. So in late 2019, Rob and Mark met with Dan and they started off Bespoke International Group. And Rob said, look, I'm there and I need you there. And we thought about it for a while because I said to myself, do I really want to go back working with Rob? That bless him, he's absolutely amazing. And it was a no-brainer to go back in. And we started off with 20 seats. I think after about 2 months of trading, the client went bankrupt or went into solar process, as they say. And we sat there thinking, wow, okay, now we're in a bit of trouble here. But the one thing that stood out to me at that point, Paul, was that all of the employees that we had, the advisors, the team leaders, the managers, recruitment, trainers, they stood by us and said, we'll stand by you guys. Whether you pay us or not, we believe in this business.
Okay.
And that was a turning point for my career at that point because you don't realize the little details and the little time you take to get to understand people and work with people. It pays off. It creates loyalty. And within 72 hours, the guys in the UK did a lot of work, a lot of traveling, and we landed our anchor client, I would say. And those guys flew down and they started training, and that's how Bespoke actually started to grow. And this was probably late November. By March, just before COVID, we landed our second account, and then COVID hit. And at that point in time, it was quite difficult times, but the team stood by us. We all worked hard. We all pushed through. And I guess the rest is history, because we've now a company with 9 clients across the globe, 1,400 seats, and it's been amazing. And my journey through that point, it started as head of operations. In March 17 of 2021, I got appointed as director of operations, which was a fantastic step and a milestone in my career, not just mine, but everyone around the South African market. Because being a Durban boy, a local, from the ground, moving up, that was a major, major step. Um, and from that point, when I became a director, I was like, how do I do this? What's the difference between a manager and a director? You've got to be more strategic. And all of the directors and my peers, and I respect all of them, and they're fantastic. But there was something about them as an employee, as a mid-level, advisor, as a team leader, in all those roles, that there's a certain distaste when you come to work with your directors. And I said to myself, I can't be like Paul, I can't be like Rob, but I can be Ralph. So I said, let's just be Ralph. Continued with the same strategy of getting to know everyone, making myself visible, walking the floors, and just continuing in that way. And it proved to be really successful, because the people around me and all of our teams became a lot more motivated to see that, hey, this kid could do it. A simple man from Palmview could do it. So we can as well. It started to open up our recruitment doors. I mean, at that point in time, we were getting people forcing themselves to walk in, and we said we can't do walk-ins because of COVID, but people were queuing up literally to get into these walls. A few months later, Rob decided that he wanted to take a back seat and work through as just a shareholder and investor. And we were looking as a business for a new managing director. And I remember being a part of the conversations, and I'm 34 years old. I'm not sure if you know that, Paul. And I was 32 at the time. And Mark and Rob sat me down and they said to me, Ralph, we want you to take this role. And I'm like, guys, firstly, I don't want it. I have no idea. I have no ambition for it. I don't know. I'm thinking, when you think MDs, you think you have really big names in the industry, right? How do I stack up against them? How do I compare against them? Wow, it's a huge office to hold. And my brother, I called him up and said to Craig, this just happened. And he said to me, Ralph, when you started as an advisor, earning the basic that you're earning, you told me that you were going to be the MD. I said, did I? Really? He said, you used to come home and said, I will be the MD of this international business. And I couldn't remember that conversation. And later on, it just hit me. Do you know what? That's great. And I will do it. And Paul, I did the exact same thing. I was just Ralph. And I remember that year of being an MD, it was a lot different. It felt different. People spoke to you differently. Clients spoke to you differently. I got to travel to the UK for the first time in March last year. That was the first time out of South Africa. So it was quite a nerve-wracking experience, and, to fly a long distance. And also, as you know, I'm used to 26 degrees, and, 3 degrees is not my cup of tea, coming to your home place. You get to travel, you're going through it. And I started to get a lot more busier. So my calendar, as you know, is back to back. There's always a meeting. You always have to be available. So I started to distance myself from the actual operational floor. And it struck me that I had missed it. I absolutely missed it. But I also realized I've taken on a new office that is going to prevent me at times from being as visible on the floor. So it became a bit of a challenge, and I started to, whilst becoming really successful at Bespoke in my role, the one area that needed to transform was availability for our people, because a lot of people in these type of offices and positions forget that in the contact center and BPO industry, if you're not available to your floor, you're not going to be successful. Your brand's going to be there because people need jobs, but people want motivation, inspiration. They want careers. So I started to step back into the floor a lot more. I managed my time a lot better. And in the end of last year, we had a few structural changes in the business, and I got offered the role of Chief Executive Officer of Air South Africa. Once again, I thought to myself, am I dreaming? It was actually exactly 1 year since I got promoted to MD. And at that point, I remember walking the sales floor, and you know how salespeople can be. And some of the guys asked me, how many sales are you on, Ralph? And a few people who didn't know me looked. And I said, I'm on three. And they looked and they're like, oh, well done. And they were new to the business. And I love the fact, Paul, that as CEO, I could walk on the floor and be recognized as a sales advisor. And that for me struck out that by being Ralph, by being human, by understanding people, that's all you need to do. I never had to become someone else. My personality is still the same. I'm late. I'm the one that's late to meetings. I started your late live, but I'm totally honest about it. I'm the one that's probably going to send that email without attaching it, but I'm honest and I have a laugh about it. And that's been the true core of success, was the grounding in a firm foundation of analytics and moving on to a management role and understanding that as a leader, you got to understand that this is a people business, a people driven business. And if your people are not happy and if you don't take care of your people, nothing else matters. You're never going to hit your KPIs. Your attrition is going to go through the roof and your clients are just not going to be happy. And that is why I always say with any new client that we speak to, come on site, come and have a look, talk to the team. Don't talk to Mark and I. You know, we've been doing this for many years, but come and actually speak to anyone. Go on the floor and take a walk and handpick someone that you can have a chat to. And that's the confidence that I've built because of the way we work and speak to our teams. So that's my introduction on yeah, I guess on the journey, really.
Amazing, Ralph. I love it. I love it. I think probably if I'm going to pick out the thing that the theme that seems to run amongst everything that you've said there is keeping that humility. Not trying to be anybody who you're not, but recognizing that Ralph was good enough. And I think that's a beautiful story. Like that is, if I think back to great leaders that I've enjoyed working with who've inspired me, I think there was a great amount of humility there for them as well. Like whilst they accepted the position that they were in, and a couple of people I can think of, the likes of Tony Parker, who I used to work with at Lidl, a great personality, a fantastic strategic thinker, but you, much like yourself, Ralph, knew everybody's personal life inside and out if you'd shared it with him, and would be more than happy to share some of his own personal life when you got the opportunity to have the conversations. I think it's a fantastic story and a great lesson to a lot of people who are going through those challenges. There's a book out, I can't remember who wrote it, but I think it was Mark. What got you here won't get you there. I might be completely wrong on the author. Apologies if I am. What got you here won't get you there. And it's a story about startups and scale-up businesses. And I think to an extent, I can understand the premise of that. But I think there are some elements in that book where, he talks about once you get to management, you've kind of got to shift what you do and be a different person and acknowledge that you need different traits. And I think there's an element in that of what you've said, in that, you recognise that you needed to be more strategic or you needed to be more dynamic, and whilst still maintaining your roots. And I think that's the bit everybody forgets is, don't lose your roots, because it's the people on the shop floor. I'm a big fan of tipping the pyramid upside down, right? The people on the shop floor are at the top of the pyramid, as far as I was always concerned, because without them, I couldn't do my daily job. It's a fantastic appreciation. So out of those 16 years, Ralph, I guess the question for me would be, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Sorry. What are 2 or 3 of the things that you've really learned that made the most difference for you? What's the biggest takeaways that you have, other than kind of maintaining who you were?
I think that's a good question, and I think the first one would be being honest and transparent. I think that I've seen leaders, on calls, when something goes wrong, immediately pick your hands up, and just be dead straight, because life happens, mistake happens, you can't control everything. And if you raise your hand up and raise it, I think it's something that I've learned and I've seen and witnessed, and it's something I adopted in my career. It just builds confidence, because a lot of times I've seen people keep quiet about things, and then eventually your clients come back to you and say, well, this is happening. Did you know about it? What are you doing about it? Second part is, if you do raise your hand up, come with the solution as well. I think that, people want to be told if something's wrong, but secondly, they need to know what are you doing about it and what's your solution to it. And I think those two key elements from a client relationship perspective is important in the BPO. But the third one, I'm going to speak to career. So to anyone out there that's in a job, no matter what role you're doing, you could be in BPO, out of BPO, in management, or as an advisor, is continuously invest in yourself. We always wait to be coached. We always wait to be told. I mean, I get this question all the time. Tell me where I can improve. That's wrong, because you need to constantly be looking at yourself and finding, what do I need to improve? And that's something I do regularly. And it sets you apart from your colleagues and from people around there, because people are waiting to get feedback to grow. No, you grow. You're supposed to grow yourself. If you don't know what to do, start reading. Take Paul's recommendation on the book. Please get the name right. I'd love to read it. Start reading, start learning. And that's important in your career. It's so important.
It was Marshall Goldsmith who wrote the book. Apologies, Mark Ronson. What got you here won't get you there. It's a fascinating book. Marshall Goldsmith. I think there's some great points, Ralph. I love those points. A lot of that resonates. I think, that certainly that point about coming with solutions already in your mind. It's very easy when you're in the thick of things to point out the problems. Problems are a very negative thing. And if everybody's pointing out all the problems all the time, it can lead to a really negative atmosphere in the workplace. But challenging yourself to come up with a solution, even if it's a wrong one, even if it's not the solution the business moves forward with, even if it's not the right solution, and it's not the right solution, come with that. It's better than just coming with a problem. I still remember my first leader telling me he had a thick Leeds accent. And I do a terrible Leeds impression, but he came to me like, Paul, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. And that still echoes in my mind to this day. That was must be 20 years ago or more. Luke, if you're watching, I'm sorry, it's a terrible impression. But yeah, like those little things like that, can really make the difference. And I think, in terms of transparency, like everything comes out in the wash. As a leader, I would never ask a question I didn't already know the answer to. I just wanted people to tell me what I already knew, so we could have a conversation about it. And then I think, lastly, to talk to the team members for me is kind of just don't assume that your solutions are going to come from the top. Sometimes the solutions from the people at the very bottom of the ladder are the most common sense and basic and simple to do, and actually work the best for your customers a lot of the time. And just to go back to the growth, well, I mean, when we first spoke probably about a year and a half ago or so, you guys were just tipping over that 800 seat mark. And to hear where you guys are at today, that's a fantastic growth considering the economic downturn, COVID happening, all the rest of the jazz. So congratulations on where you've gone. I guess for me, I'll be keen to understand like what's changed in the industries that you're targeting. Are you kind of still is it still quite a varied client base? Is there specific industries that you guys specialize in now? How's that changed since the economic downturn, I guess?
I think there's a couple of things. I think the first one being, there's a lot more competitors out there, and South Africa, we are diverse, and all of the centers are really good. And I think if I look at the centers in Cape Town, Joburg, and the ones across the road from me in Durban, we all are unique, but the guys have a passion. It's the advisors that drive these businesses, and the passion in the people of Durban and South Africa make us all successful, to be fair. Yeah. And in the last 2 years, South Africa has been ranked as number one as a global destination for BPO, for customer experience. And that's brought in a lot of attraction from other territories, not just the UK, but the US as well. And it's really good to see not just Bespoke grow, but some of our partners. I would say, the synergies, the Outworks, the CCIs of the world, they're doing absolutely well, and I'm super proud of each and every one of them, because it's a funny story. We all started at CCI, and we all all of the companies, we know people, we mutually are connected and we work together. And for me, it's very proud when any of our competitors win new business. And, it makes me happy because I know they're creating more jobs. They're making life harder for me because obviously with the more jobs, they'll probably want more experienced people. But I guess it's all fun. I think the growth in Durban has been tremendous. We've all benefited of the exposure. But speaking to Bespoke, I think for us it's about partnerships, and we partner with businesses. So if we work with a specific client, it's a solutions approach. We're not just people on seats. We are more than that. We want to improve on your scores. If there's specific areas that you want us to work on, I mean, between Mark and myself, we speak to our clients regularly. We get involved. And that's been really our core foundation of why we win business, is because from the get-go, it's not a sales pitch, but it's a solutions approach, and we go into it and look at what are the problems you're facing. Why do you want to outsource in the first place? Let's understand those needs and those requirements. And that's what we do. We massively in the energy market, retail, financial services, and it's been going good. It's been going really good.
Fantastic. It's a great success story. It's kind of a really nice underdog story that I'm sure everybody will kind of appreciate. You guys have come from nowhere to being really successful really quickly. It's only been a short amount of time that Bespoke Group have actually been going. And to your point, yeah, the wider success of South Africa in general has been instrumental over the last couple of years. It's really been fantastic to watch and be part of, from the sidelines as vendors and partners for a lot of businesses that are working out there. Well, look, we're coming up to the half-hour mark, so I'm gonna more or less draw a line under things here. I'm conscious you've got other things to be moving on to as well. Is there any last words that you kind of, if you could speak to yourself 16 years ago, is there any last words that you would whisper in your ear before you left the room?
I would say to myself, don't procrastinate, act now. I think this is not just for me, but for every other person. Don't wait for tomorrow. Do it right now.
Amazing. I love it. Thanks very much, Ralph. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming along.